Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronan Nazarene Talks. I'm one of your hosts, Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films.
And another one. Hello.
Thanks for tuning in, and today we're going to do another Powell and Pressburger double bill, and we're going to do two films that probably are as opposite as you could perhaps find in their catalogue. The Small Back Room from 1949 and The Tales of Hoffmann from 1951.
And I only saw a Small Back Room last week. I'd never seen it before. It was one of those ones that's a bit harder to get a hold of compared to some of the other films. And I thought I actually had it when Ronan suggested it to me as I wanted to talk about it, and it turned out I had Spy in Black instead. And for some reason, I got them confused in my head. So, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, The Small Back Room is one of their most underrated and underseen films, I think.
Yeah. It's excellent. It's really good, but it isn't the sexy subject. It's about bomb disposal from the point of view of, and this job will make you crazy. This job will really make you suffer. So it's not like
plus it came right after the Red Shoes. So you have, and it should be pointed out, it's black and white. So it comes after this Technicolor explosion of the Red Shoes and Black Narcissus and Matter of Life and Death. And then it's a monochrome film that's a lot darker and more psychological.
It's a character piece. So before you think this bomb disposal, this is not Speed.
No.
It's not like that.
No.
It's not a suspense movie, like at all. It's a character piece. There's a couple of suspense sequences in it, but they're not the point.
Oh, tremendous.
Yep. But it's all about character, and the suspense of the suspense is because you've gotten to know the characters, not because they're trying to do some cut the red wire, the blue wire, or whatever like that. It's not about that. So, do you want to explain the plot? Well, I'll explain the plot.
Oh, go ahead. Set in 1943.
You're leaving Tales of Hoffmann to me, basically, aren't you?
Yes. Tales of Hoffmann plot's a lot more simple. Set in 1943, stars David Farrar, who works in a research wing, kind of advising the military. It's run by Jack Hawkins. The film has a tremendous cast: Cyril Cusack, Catherine Byron, who was in Black Narcissus,
young Michael Gough,
before he went into butlering. Sid James, which obviously some people might just know him as Carry On, but he did have a very good, interesting career playing bit parts up to that point. Leslie Banks, Robert Morley. I mean, it's just got an amazing cast. So they have this research facility. Michael Gough comes to him, and there's been devices dropped. There's a very nice touch about 3 children have been killed. You know, it doesn't shy away from like the brutality of things.
Yep.
And it's kind of 2 threads. It's not particularly plot driven. It's more character driven, but you have this plot of finding out what these devices are and how to stop them, and also the inner politics of the research centre, the balance of science versus commerce, telling the military, selling things to the military, whether they work or not. And also the inner demons of David Farrar's character and his relationship with Kathleen Byron as alcohol.
Yeah, and it's also about how difficult the job actually is, and how you have to. It's not just I know everything. It's like when you get a problem, you have to talk to lots of different people in the area, in the group. They've all got there's one specialities. It's like, well, you can do this, you can do that, and they're figuring it out as they go. But they're not. It's not like there's only one person who's just going to go, Eureka, I've got it.
Yeah,
it's a very much a process. It's not like it's a very human level where it's no one's a genius, but David Farrar's character is very smart, but he's smart enough to know that he doesn't know everything, which is a nice touch.
He has a. On you.
It's all bureaucracy though. There's a lot of bureaucracy in it.
Yeah, and he has a tin leg, again, there's no backstory. We don't find out how that happens. It doesn't really matter. He's just got it and that he deals with it and how he interacts with other people when he's in certain moods. Again, it's a perfect example of how modern Pressburger's scripts were. Of course, there's language that kind of date the scripts, but such modern ideas, again, that idea of commerce against science, the bureaucracy within the department. Jack Hawkins is essentially a glorified salesman. But the relationships with Cyril Cusack, who's got problems at home, it's just such a modern, watching it again, I was struck by how much a modern script it is, apart from obviously certain language.
I mean, the language isn't that art either, though. I mean, you can understand these are just normal people. This is not like someone, compared to the language of something like A Matter of Life and Death, this is pretty pared down. Really. There's nothing elaborate about it. They talk very normal. It's just from a certain time, that's it. But it's not like what we get nowadays, we see someone making films from the 40s, everything's so stylized it doesn't feel human. This is just like, because it was actually set during the war, they just treat it as nowadays.
You could take the script and pretty much make it now with like a few little changes, but I mean, it did strike me as such a modern script.
Yeah, plus you don't get any flashbacks to how he lost a leg or something. It's just like, that's part of the job. It's horrible, but it's not like it's traumatized him, but let's treat it as it's traumatized him in interesting ways rather than we make it reductive to this is why he's like this because he lost his leg. No, that just prodded him into some of his other flaws. I mean, one of the problems him and his girlfriend have are due to his drinking, due to the fact that he won't stand up for himself. It's not to do with his leg. His leg's a problem, but it's not ultimately his real problem. It's the side problem. It's something he has to live with, but it's not the issue. It's really working against him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really dark film, but there's also humour in it, as most of the Archer's films do have. But again, it's the relationships that really stand out. Again, near the end of the film, how far you can go into spoilers with a film in 1949, but the relationship between him and the officer who's in charge of the bomb site is just wonderful. There's not a lot said, but you can tell the kind of mutual respect between each other. I mean,
but they also don't give each other space to be self-indulgent. It's just pretty much do your job. We need to get it sorted.
It's a film of the relationships and the bonds that are formed between these people, even if it's between a short period of time, and it's just so real and nothing's forced and it's just so well written.
Yeah, it's also the funny thing is Mick Hoffman in the beginning with information, but he's also hitting on our lead character's girlfriend, and then he realizes, she's actually with him. Oh, fucker, I've made a mistake. But even that, it doesn't cause any problems later on. They two still work together and they're still going really well. It's like, you messed up, so what? It's not like they're going to have a duel at dawn or something over it. It's just like, it happens, so what? And
as with the Archer stuff, it's another really good female role for Kathleen Byron. She's not just like standing in the sidelines. She's a strong character because she's got to deal with David Farrar's moments.
And she has to deal with her boss, who's an idiot.
Yes, Jack Hawkins is hilarious in this film.
Yeah, they're just having a lot of fun with his. He's just. I'm sorry, something just came up on my computer. He is a salesman, but the film was actually smart enough to point out that's just his background. He's doing the best he can in that job. It's just he's not really suited for the job. It's not like he's malicious in any way. It's just like that's who he is. He's an advertising guy.
It's a kind of different role for Jack Hawkins. You don't really see him doing that too often.
He's probably really happy to get something different.
Yeah. Because obviously at that point, working with Powell and Pressburger was probably everybody's dream. Even though it's not hard to understand why this film bombed and was a box office disaster, but it's understandable.
Well, it was about bombs, so it's appropriate.
Yeah. Because again, coming after the Red Shoes, it's a hard act to follow.
Yeah, I mean, you tell someone just after the war, we're going to do a film about bomb disposal experts, unless it was the most depressing film ever. It's like, it's in black and white. It's like, no. Nah, anything with that. So I think it's timing more than anything. Really, I think it just it wasn't the most amazing subject. This is the kind of film that would make, not quality wise, just the kind of content. It's kind of film that a director would probably make on Netflix nowadays, where it's like, I've done a big film, I'll do this little small film, I'll put it on Netflix, and people get to see it, but it's not going to be the next big thing. It's that kind of film where the director makes it after a big film because he wants to make it, rather than it's commercially astonishing or anything. It's that kind of project, really.
Yeah, and obviously Michael Powell visually kind of tones down the expressionism with one large exception.
He loves that bottle, doesn't he? He loves that
it's
bottle.
more of a realism versus expressionism, but the expressionism's toned down a bit visually from Powell, but it still obviously looks
I know, but when he does it, that one scene, it tells you a lot of the character. It's not like empty. It's not like they say, okay, you can do your one scene, but it's actually where it's placed. It does feel like, that feels right. It's telling you what's going on inside him, how he's feeling. So it helps propel the rest of the narrative. So it's not like an empty flourish that you get nowadays where the director says, I want a scene where I can show off. I don't care what it means. I'm showing off.
But certainly on the Criterion DVD, because sadly it is only in DVD, hopefully that will change at some point. Christopher Chalice, who shot it, has a really good interview with him, and he talks about how for him, Technicolor somehow makes it easier for you, and black and white is more challenging, and obviously it does look beautiful. And Chalice, who shot quite a few Powell and Pressburger films, does a really good job in this, because it's shot like a noir essentially, even though it's not really a noir.
Yeah, it's shadows, but it doesn't treat the characters as doomed or anything. It's just like a drama. But the noir, it's kind of semi-noir. It's not quite full-on Robert Mitchum and the getting destroyed with some dame or anything. It's just like, this is more like, imagine a noir world where people behave like normally and actually work on the problems, and they fall off the wagon a little bit, and then they come back and realise what they've done. It's not like not the melodrama of a noir. It's like melodrama. It's just like real life where people make mistakes and they think, "Oh God, I've just made that horrible mistake. I better not do that again."
It's a much more grounded film than perhaps. I mean, it might shock people who have only kind of seen the big elaborate Powell and Pressburger and the Technicolor stuff, but they obviously did a lot of more grounded films as well.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've seen stuff like one of your Crafters Mist or something like that, you'll recognise this world, this kind of very much like black and white world where it's not mega budgets, but just people talking to each other, and you're seeing weird characters. I mean, it's the thing where this is like a film where Pressburger can strut stuff. Well, when someone like Red Shoes, that's where Powell can strut stuff. It's that kind of thing where it's more of a Pressburger film in a weird way, because it's more of a writer's film.
Yeah. I should say it was based on a novel, so it's not an original script. But obviously Pressburger adapted it.
Made up to that point,
they did a lot of the films up to that point were original scripts.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't tell it was based on anything. It feels like a Pressburger script through and through, And you've got these weird details, as you said, about Sybil Cusack as the guy with marital problems. And other films that have been banged over your head with this, and this one is very subtle, very careful, very humane. It's not like a major thing, but it's an important thing. Like
how that gets resolved is actually quite moving.
Yeah. And it's just very humane. It also is a way to show that the lead character has pulled himself back from the brink and realised it's a guy who had to hit bottom in a weird way, but it's not like a melodrama where, like Requiem for a Dream, where they have to hit bottom in the most melodramatic way possible. It's like, no, he hits bottom in a very sane way and then realises, what I've been told is right. I have been making a mess of things.
Yeah.
And that's what's quite interesting with the character. He is logical, even though he's got a lot of problems.
Yeah. We also should say essentially the set piece at the end is handled brilliantly and is very tense. It's just shot. It kind of starts out longer shots, and then it just gets tighter and tighter as the tension builds.
Yeah. And the real thing is, what's brilliant is they set up Michael Goff at the beginning, and they bring him in a really great scene where they talk to somebody who's been injured by the bomb. So you only see him like twice through the film, and then you have a phone call with him, and then you find out he died off screen. But that adds to the tension because of he was an important enough character throughout the film that his death, even off screen, matters. So you get to the end. In this kind of film, the hero could die. It's not off the table. The hero could die. He's messed up enough in his personal life that could be an ending for the film.
Yeah. And you actually miss Michael Goff's character, even though, like you say, he's not actually on the screen that often. But he's just so well written when he's on screen that you're upset when you find out what happened to him.
Yeah, and he's very reserved and he's very safe. So even though he makes a mess up with hitting on the girl at the beginning, he handles it well, and you like him because he handles it with extremely realizes he's made a mistake. And when he's talking to the guy who's been injured, you really like the character because he is humane. He's trying his best. It's not like he's a scumbag or anything. He's a genuinely decent person. He's trying to solve the problem, and they're all trying to solve this problem.
Yeah.
So even he's such a good character when he dies off screen, it's like, wow, that's pretty shocking.
Yeah. And I just love the little detail where he was obviously dictating what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then Farrer's character gets the female officer to read back essentially his death, which is just a lovely scene. And obviously she's upset because it's just brilliantly done.
It tells you everything that could go wrong, but it doesn't mean you're repeating the same scene twice. Because if he'd done that scene in front of you and then had him do that scene, it would be really make the scene really boring. But because doing that, it's an inventive way of telling you what the problems are and it's like getting through exposition without going through exposition.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really a movie scene because it makes you really feel the loss of him. You see he behaved so dignified even though he died.
Yeah. It's a masterclass in writing.
Yeah.
Like, strangely enough, quite a lot of Pressburger's work is.
Yeah, but that's why I think I'm seeing it. It's more of a Pressburger film, a Powell film. It's like it's the one where he gets to show off his stuff in a way that in the next one we talk about it's the opposite. But we're still in this one. But ultimately it's a two-hander between Kathleen Byron and David Farrar. It's ultimately that. I mean, there's so many scenes between them, and it's like watching them in the workplace with each other, and watching them at home with each other, and the various interactions between how other people come through the scenes with them that affects them. But it's really about those two characters.
And Snowball the cat gives a moving performance as a cat.
Yeah, the funny thing is they're not married in this film, but it does feel like a married couple trying to get through a problem, even though they're not. So it's like it's a story about marriage, but the marriage hasn't happened yet, and it's like the difficulties of two people who are in love with each other, but one of them's got a massive problem, and it's like how do you deal with someone with a problem who's intelligent but he's got a problem? He has to try and figure it out, and it's like a naughty problem you can't find. There's not an easy solution to it. He has to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, I'll just do this, because it's not really a solution. It has to be organic.
But again, it's just so modern from a psychological standpoint for a film that was made in 1949.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They were coming off stuff like Life and Death of Colonel Blimp was also very modern, but also looked at a psychology that was old-fashioned, looked at with some humanity. We look at all the different details of the characters, and like when an aircraft is missing, you see a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting characters very quickly, and you get a lot of tension. It's like they're very good at sketching characters and watching them work.
Yeah, and that's maybe why they were never really appreciated properly at the time. Yeah,
because they weren't obvious.
Yeah.
Obvious stuff sells a lot easier to critics because the thing no one ever wants to admit is a lot of critics are stupid. It's like, we have to respect critics. Most of them aren't worth your respect. There are a few that are, but most of them aren't. Most of them are just idiots.
Yeah.
Who follow the party line, but everything. And they're basically selling the film to you.
Yes.
And which is one of the reasons why when a film bombs or a film doesn't work, they're so vicious about it, because it means they can actually let out their spleen. When they've been kowtowing to other stuff for years. That's my little rabbit critic. Sorry about that.
That's perfectly right. And Stonehenge gives a wonderful performance as well as
yes.
Stonehenge. Probably wouldn't be able to film at Stonehenge now.
I know, it's just a background.
David Farrar, I think, sits on one of the stones, and Leslie Banks stands on one of the stones. It's unbelievable.
I know. And it's finest moment in cinema until Quatermass conclusion.
Yes.
It's been used a lot, but this one actually just having in the background really works. Just as it's an interesting background. That's it.
Because they're trying out a gun that
doesn't work very well.
Doesn't work very well, but they still want to sell it to the military. So.
Yeah, I know, that's great. It's so cynical. It's like it's something you see in the RoboCop of a horror film. We don't see it very often, But yeah, who cares what works? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
But here it's like during the war, and it's like even more sinister because the guy. The army guys actually point out it's like we need this to work because all these guys you have are not experts.
Yeah.
We're not giving it to experts. You can't just work for like a few really good people. It has to work for the average person who will not know how to use something complicated. And it's like,
there you go.
It's like that's a good point. No, it's a really good point. It's like you can't just make weapons for experts. You have to make it for people to use who may not have that kind of training.
Yeah, because that boardroom scene where they're trying to sell it is wonderful, because there's this character who introduces himself. Oh yeah, this is another kind of almost Quango that was introduced to look at it, and of course none of them saw the gun working. They're all experts in completely different disciplines, and it's like
it's a scene from Yes Minister. Basically.
Yeah, it's.
And the guy who's sharing it is mostly pictures for most of the scene because he's not interested. And this is an important weapon. It's like his job is to be. It's almost like how you imagine the Boris Johnson cabinet going on.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just typical British closeness, which the archers always seem to enjoy poking a stick at. And that's the problem with the character. One of the problems with characters. Alcoholism is the expression of it. A lot of it actually is him dealing with these people and how he can't really get through to them what they actually need to do. And she's telling them that you've been too cynical and you're stepping back and you're letting them ramrod over everything and it's making you worse. You used to be stand up for yourself and want to stand up for the people more. Yeah. And that's his problem. Ultimately, it's not the wound, it's the problem where he has to stand up against these people. Which is an interesting thing to actually have as a character's problem, because 9 times out of 10 it would be the alcohol.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Even though we mentioned alcohol and also the scene with the bottle, the alcohol doesn't actually dominate the film. It's not really about alcohol, as you say.
It's how he expresses his problems. It's not the problem. It's like it's a crutch. We have to realize it's a crutch. We use it as a crutch. Now, what's the actual problem causing the crutch? It's sort of like it's a much more sophisticated view of addiction than a lot of films have, because a lot of views about addiction just like it's about what you're addicted to, rather than okay, what's actually causing you to be addicted to this thing? What's the thing you're not facing? And this film is about what's the thing he's not facing, is he needs to actually fight back against these idiots who are losing the war. And once he realizes that, he actually gets somewhere. It's not done in a very kind of a way that's really annoying or anything. It's done in a very subtle way.
Yeah.
So you can probably guess we both adored this film. We're both kind
of... it's a gem in every sense of the word. And it is, like I say, the underrated, underseen gem of their catalogue, probably.
Yeah, it's so underrated, no underseen. It's not even any of the box sets or anything. It's just away to the side somewhere. I mean, even Country Tales is in the box set.
Yeah.
And that's a weird film, which I haven't got to yet, which I'm looking forward to getting to. Yeah. But this one is like so underrated. Yeah. It's even like more out there than the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah, but it's an absolute gem.
Yeah,
It's got an amazing cast, an amazing script, great performances. There's not anybody that's a note out of place.
I know. It's an example of how you do a subject right and not show off about it. It's like, another great film. There you go.
Yeah.
Of course, no one appreciated it.
No.
Yeah.
So again, if you're only familiar with their Technicolor work, then give Small Backroom a chance. And obviously, one of our aircraft is missing, 48 parallels, by and black, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. It's a bomber movie. It's not really the bombs. And that's the kind of probably the thing that kind of hurt the most is like, it's not really about that. So it's.
No.
So even though it's one of the best bomb disposal scenes, something we know about that. So, anything else to say about the Small Backroom?
No, apart from if you haven't seen it, then try and find it somewhere because it's.
I found it.
Did you find it?
I found it on eBay. It was just basically a basic edition. There's no extras, but it was £7 or £8. So you can find it on eBay. I mean, you have to look for it, but it is worth watching because it's really good. And the print on eBay that I found,
because it's on Criterion DVD.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find that.
But like I said, sadly, not on Blu-ray. It's got a commentary with scholar Charles Barr. Like I said, the interview with Chris Chalice is wonderful because he goes into Michael Powell and his reputation as far as like being difficult. But as he says, if Powell challenged you and you could actually come up with things, you did like being challenged. So that's a wonderful interview with Chris Chalice, and there's audio excerpts from Michael Powell's biography as well.
The one I got was this one. It's a British edition. It's from Studio
cover.
Canal, Optimum Classics. There's nothing there, but the print's good. Yeah. So you can find this one on eBay, and it's definitely worth seeing because it's a really terrific film.
Yeah. So 2 years later.
Yep. This is
take a drink before.
Before I have to try and explain Tales of Hoffmann. Right. You scumbag. You're a scumbag. I was hoping to trick you into this one.
Yeah.
I think we both remember the same plan as like, okay, I'll take the Small Backroom. Right, it's Tales of Hoffmann is one of my favourite Paul Pressburger films. It's always been one of my favourite ones. It's the one I saw on TV in Channel 4 when I was young. And even though I didn't understand the opera, I just adored it. The visuals, the stories, everything. So it's basically an anthology film, but it's an anthology film with one person's life. And it's like basically Hoffmann, who is telling us he's been watching an opera and he's in love with this woman. And he's trying to get her to meet him at this bar. While he's at the bar, he decides to tell his comrades who are also at the opera and who have gone to the pub during the intermission the tales of his loves over his life. So you end up going back in time, you get 3 different tales. The first tale is when he falls in love with a ballerina who turned out to be robotic, played by Moira Shearer. The second one is when he falls in love with a woman who's trying to steal his shadow and steal his reflection and soul. And the third one is in a Greek island where he's fallen in love with a woman who cannot sing anymore or she'll die. And as each story is told, he becomes more and more depressed. Pamela Brown plays his servant who travels through with him. And he's got a villainous, basically
Nemesis.
Satanic figure who's out to destroy his loves each time and destroy whatever he loves and bring him to ruin. And he's also plotted to do that in the modern day as well. And that's Tales of Hoffmann. It's also an opera. It's in colour. It's a masterpiece. And it's a film that people always forget because of the red shoes.
Yeah.
Is that fine?
That's absolutely wonderful. I think I saw it on television in black and white the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to see it at the Glasgow Film Theatre when it was restored, actually on the big screen, which was awesome.
Yeah.
It's a film that perhaps in the third story is a little flawed, but I overlook the flaws because it's I absolutely love it, and it is just an absolute masterwork.
Yeah, the third story is a bit long after the first two. The first two are so good, the power of them pushes you through it.
Yeah.
And I think the third one, the problem is the actress they have playing the women isn't as interesting as the women in the first two. And it's more to do with that than anything.
Yeah. Because she's actually a singer. Because obviously lots of the actors were dubbed by singers, but she actually is the singer. The same with Robert Rounsville, who plays Hoffmann. He was a singer and an actor.
Yeah. But her presence as an actress wasn't as good.
No.
And that kind of sucked life out a little bit. But it's still so good. There's still so many other...
I overlook that because that's a minor thing, because even from the opening minute of the film, you know you're in for something special.
Yeah, and even that one section is still stunning. It's like...
I mean...
There's... we're
again,
talking about a minute or two of she's not as good as other ones. That's it.
Yeah. Because it goes back to that story, goes back to, the red shoes and how much you would sacrifice for your art. In this case, your life.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame they didn't get more sure to play all the women. Though that might have actually worked better.
Yeah.
To connect it, doing the same thing of, because she plays the robot woman and she plays the woman who he's in love with in the modern times.
Dancer at the start.
Yeah, if she'd done all of them, it probably would have connected it more emotionally. But that's again a minor thing. They didn't want to do that because they'd done that with Deborah Kerr and Colonel Blimp. So I think it was a case of trying something different. But it's a stunner. This one's a real stunner.
I mean, it is literally pure cinema, unadulterated pure cinema. Hein Heckroth, who was again a long-time collaborator, his production design is just insane. The colours in the film, I mean, it's a film that, obviously the Red Shoes is coming out in 4K in Criterion, but I mean, Tales of Hoffmann is another one that should be in 4K. Obviously it looks amazing in Blu-ray anyway, but it's just an absolutely stunning film. What I love about it the most is the fact that Hoffmann is a complete chump.
Yeah.
That's what I love the most about the film, is the fact he's clueless.
Yeah, he never learns anything.
It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, as a sort of comment on men and how they deal with love, is the fact that just he only really gets it at the end.
Yeah, it's too late.
It's way too late. That's the tragedy of the end, and he gets it far beyond when he should have got it. But yeah, no, it's the
fact that he sees a woman and he's instantly in love with her. And it's the first episode, with the doll, it's like he's professing his love and hasn't even spoken to her. He's just such a...
I know, but he's a young man then. So he's don't make me stupid. But he never learns as he gets older.
No.
It's kind of it's that famous story logic of someone who just is simple and he can't quite get beyond his knowledge. He can't quite learn anything he really needs to learn. And Palmer Brown plays the person who's with him, who keeps on watching him make the same mistake again and again and again. He just can't quite work it out.
And
I was lucky this time, because
Like,
this time actually I'd only ever seen it on like on the TV, but because I could project this time, I could set the projector, plus I had my sound speakers on, and I could have 3 different speakers, and it really is amazing me. I can have a decent sound and projecting just to see the detail of the costumes, the detail of the cinematography. The thing with this film is it's shot as if it's a theatre production, but done by a filmmaker. So it's all in studio. There's nothing outside. Everything is there to be theatrical, to be fake, and it's telling you it's fake. It's not trying to say, "Oh, we're trying to make it realistic." They're not.
Yeah,
nothing's realistic here. It's all about theatricality, which is why it didn't do as well as Red Shoes. It didn't have that introduction to the fantasy. It was just straight in. It's like you're...
Yeah, it's a filmed opera, so there's no kind of narrative really outside that opera.
And it's also George Romero's favourite film. Famously, his favourite film. He used to always hire out the print from I think it was New York print house. So much that even Scorsese couldn't get a copy of it because George Romero kept on.
There's the wonderful anecdote on whatever release it is, it might be the Criterion or Studio Canal as well, about how it was pretty much all the movie brats were going and renting it out, and so when they couldn't, it was one of the other ones that had it.
And basically, they had to get it via, unless when George Romero wasn't having it, because he was having it all the time, because that was in Scorsese's book, talking about the influence of it, and it was like, yeah, we're going to try and get it out the library, and George Romero always had it.
Yeah, because again, there's so much dark little beats in it as well, with eyes and body parts, and the Venice scene is just.
Yeah,
I mean, I could literally watch the Venice scene all day long.
I know, the music is amazing. I mean, you watch this film, you see Brian De Palma watched this film so often. There's no way he did not watch this film. There's always a massive influence because he's such an operatic director. Yeah. There's no way this film did not have a massive influence on him. Of all the movie brats, probably him the most, you'd see it influenced. Although I think you'd see this one on Age of Innocence.
Yeah, no doubt. When Giulietta, the object of Hoffmann's desire in Venice, is walking down near the end of that, and she's walking on these mummified or fossilized people, and she walks in somebody's neck, and her foot goes in somebody's mouth. I mean, it's just
astonishing. Yeah, and we should also have to mention the villain.
Yeah, Robert Helpman is just sensational. The work he does with his eyes. Obviously, Scorsese again has talked about Helpman's eyes in this film, especially in the gondola sequence in Venice, being an inspiration for De Niro's eyes in Taxi Driver. Probably his looking in Goodfellas in the bar as well, who he's going to murder.
Yeah, and also has been said the Emperor in Star Wars definitely influenced. I mean, the cloaks and everything. I mean, it's the Sith from Star Wars is basically Helpman. If you look at Revenge of the Sith, right, when Anakin goes bad, he's basically doing Robert Helpman poses throughout it. It's just like just do that.
Yeah, how Helpman is introduced into the film with his cape, with his tassels. I mean, he is almost like a Dracula figure. Obviously, the robotic sequence is a bit of Frankenstein.
That jacket with all the eyes in the jacket.
Yeah, the Venice sequence with stealing of the souls
becomes completely satanic. He's trying to steal the reflection of Hoff to steal a soul. Literally, he's a devil at this point. He's just astonishing.
I mean, one of my favourite moments in cinema, period, is not to give away spoilers, but when Hoffman he throws the key against the mirror and his reflection comes back and gets his soul back.
Yeah.
And he rushes up going, yes, I've got my soul back. And then it cuts to a close-up of him going, what an idiot I am. I mean, it's just one of the greatest moments. It's one of my favourite moments in cinema.
Yeah. And that middle section, I mean, it's stunning. It's just, it's always good, but we see it in the projection and the music playing. It's just amazing. And the thing was the opening sequence, the first story with the robot, where she was a robot, was the one I always remembered as childhood, because I remembered it. It was just an amazing sequence, even though I didn't understand the opera side of it. You can understand the logic of it straight away. They've created this image of a woman who's a robot, and it's just wonderful. Just something primal in your head is just created from this one.
And when
image.
She's torn apart at the end.
I know, and the legs keeps going.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And then when the heads on the ground and springs come out, and of course that segues into the reflection, the ripples in the water in Venice. I mean, it's
I know.
Just like,
and with all these reflections in Venice before he loses his soul, so it's almost a preamble, almost like the people who try to get his soul have lost their soul already, and they want his soul, and it's stunning. So a lot of really subtle things going on, and the great sequence in the third one where she's running, keeps on repeating the thing where she's running back and forward, and she goes through one door and ends up the other side, the next door, which was which was actually homaged in Matrix Revolutions, actually, because they have that in that as well. It's like they probably just took it straight from this one.
Yeah.
This film has been influenced so many films.
Yeah.
And because
And
no one's seen the film, they think the
Yeah.
people have been really original. It's like, no, it's all came from Tales of Hoffmann.
I was going to say, I don't think it gets enough credit for being as influential as it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, this was Dracula before Christopher Lee. Like, this was before Christopher Lee's Dracula. This was pretty much the, if you look at the vampire and a lot of stuff, it's part influenced by Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi, but it's part influenced by this film because no one's seen this film.
Yeah,
and
Robert Helpman.
And the visual style of it was very influential in Hammer's gaudy visual style. I mean, Hammer was the one group that looked at Bill Pressburger and thought, they're doing the right stuff. We're not doing this realism stuff. We're doing that. So if you look at a lot of the Hammer films from the 50s and 60s, like Dracula, Kiss the Vampire, Brides of Dracula, they're all following this text. This is what they're following. You know, it's like, we're doing that.
Yeah. It's almost unfair how good it is. And again, the visual tricks that they're doing aren't like these amazing visual tricks, but it doesn't matter because the world they create, it's just amazing, and you just go with it because you forget about the rest of the world because you're only focusing on the film.
Yeah. One other thing before I go off Hammer, just like Hammer are the only group smart enough to rip this off. They're the only ones smart enough to say, yeah, we're having that. That's great. No one else was smart enough to rip it off for a long time until the movie Brits.
Yeah.
And that influenced a lot of 60s horror, just the entirety of the 60s horror. Or we look at something like the Roger Corman Poe films. You look at Master of Red Death, it's just so much influenced by the Bill Pressburger stuff. Like,
because again, this is another one that Scorsese was involved with because this essentially disappeared for a couple of decades at least before Scorsese was kind of helped bringing it back, getting it restored because it was cut down. When it was always shown in television for decades, it was cut. So it's another one that we should thank Scorsese for.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's just a stunning film. It's hard to, I mean, I said earlier that this is a film where Michael Pell got to show off. So, I mean, Pressburger does the script and he gets the opera right, and he gets the stories clean so you can follow each bit, and he works out how you actually can tell the story and help Pell tell the story visually, because there's no dialogue, it's singing, but he works out the mechanics of wherever it needs to be visually so Pell can work it out and make it look good. So it's a very well put together script, but it's just a very unconventional one.
But I think this is also Heckroth's finest hour because it's literally just go mad. I mean, again, the Venice sequence with a big kind of mouth, and it's just jaw dropping. Yeah,
and also the one thing that when you see the bigger screen is actually the opening section as well. The doll thing. There's so much delightful stuff through the dolls, and all these dolls that come down and become people and they're doing a dancing through it, and it's just astonishing. It's so visual and so imaginative, and it takes a lot from European folklore, and it's so respectful of the old ways of telling a kind of supernatural story, and it learns from that and then pushes it forward into the visual color schemes of what is like visual storytelling.
And again, the first song that isn't part of the story, which is just the song of Kleinsack, who's this kind of wee fat jester, again, that comes to life. And that mini little story is probably the actual story of Hoffmann anyway, which is that kind of prefigures Hoffman's story. It's just so good.
It's also
the bookends of the film are really well done. The reveal of Robert Helpman throughout all the stories is wonderful. It's awesome.
Yeah, but it's also a really good way to show how you write a film that's all visual. Like how you actually do it. It's just a clean, clear, full. It's not show off any dialogue because there's no dialogue, but it's actually like how you actually plan it all out. Like it's much more complicated than you'd initially seen.
And again, who's doing this in 1951?
Yeah, I mean, who does it now? I mean, the only person who's done it now really is, you could just say Fury Road, which was a different type of film, but it was another one that was basically based on the visuals, and you'd have little bits of dialogue through it, but mainly it's the visuals. But most people don't do that. If you look at something like what Coppola did with Dracula, where he's trying to do that, but he was stuck with a dubbed script. So whenever they were talking, it was like, every time they would actually do the visuals, it was great.
Yeah.
So
and also, like, there's a need to explain everything, so you still need screeds and screeds of exposition nowadays.
I know this one is like,
even if you're trying to be visual, you still
Yeah.
have to like have all this information.
Yeah, there was an example of that with Brian De Palma was doing Raising Cain. He was like, I could have this one exposition scene. What did I do with it? It was like, because I've been on for so long, being crazy. Like, I need to explain this. So they did a Steadicam shot just to try and get out of the way and talk really fast. And it's like, that's one way to do it. It's just another way to try and keep it interesting because no one cares. And this film is like, we trust you to understand this. You don't need the explanation. Just, of course, probably put too much trust in the audience. But
yeah, because this wasn't successful either. But
but it's still an amazing film. This is a film that may not do well, but it's the one that is going to get watched again and again over the years, compared to some films that do well on release and then no one cares about them later because it's still not that good. Yeah. This is the prime example of not particularly successful film that has legs that just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I mean, there's whole chunks of this film, but like I said earlier, I could literally just watch in a loop all day and never get tired of them.
Even the weakest section, you can still do that with.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was watching it again, the one film that's not really modern anymore that I thought of was Dario Argento's Inferno, but that's like 40 years old now. So even that's not really new film. That's closer to the Hoffmann as to us. Yeah. That's another one where it's like, there's not much explanation. Who cares? Just watch the visual images.
Yeah, it's about music and colour and emotion and movement, which is just pure art. Yeah. Not arse.
Yeah, no, but some people just don't get it. I mean, again, look at Kubrick with Barry Lyndon or 2001. He was doing that kind of stuff, and people were like, "No, what is this? This is too weird." I mean,
sometimes people do forget that cinema is a visual medium, which sounds bizarre, but they kind of do.
Yeah, because they become reliant on talk and more talk and more talk, and it's like, it's good when you get someone who can do talk, like David Mamet or Howard Hawks. Yeah. But most people can't. Most people just do exposition scenes that are boring. And what we see with this film, it's not boring. It's just pretty stunning throughout. It's like you're seeing stuff that you don't expect to see. I mean, the only place you really see is like in Europe when they had to do that just to avoid the censors and just make it really visual. But in modern like cinema, like Western cinema, is not done very often because people would want a conventional storytelling. They want it. Maybe even look at something like Once Upon a Time in the West, which is more about that than doing exposition. It's like that's too much visuals. Where's talk?
Yeah, because as far as influences, I've looked at my notes, and Peter Greenaway as well, I would say is hugely influenced by this.
Yeah, I would also say Sion Sono, if you look at his films, he's influenced by the visuals of pure whites, pure yellows, and pure greens and stuff. And he's another one who doesn't really care about the exposition as much. He just has it when he needs it. Yeah. But I know his films more than you do, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he's another one who's like that. Who's got that kind of feeling to him. So it still continues, but a lot of directors have to do it in a lower budget. You can't really do this in a big budget and hope to get away with it because you'll just get absolutely shredded by the studio. They'll just say, "What's this? This is too weird. We don't want this."
Yeah. And Robert Helpman does show off the best raised eyebrow in cinema history.
I know. Yeah.
His raised eyebrow is just awesome.
Yeah, fuck The Rock.
His eyebrow is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Helpman, you could just cut all of his bits in this film together and it would just be like, release that.
Plus the thing is, because he was a ballet dancer, he just knew movement. Or just there's always a sense of malice in his just walking across the stage. There's a sense of malice to it. It's like, oh god, he's trouble. And even when he's disguised, you know it's him, and you always know that there's a malice is there.
When he's introduced as he glides through the 3 chairs and it's a high shot, it's just like, you know, something's
and they keep
almost supernatural about him. Yeah.
Slowly. And just that whole just keep saying I'm going to steal his reflection. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. And it's like, it's such a creepy idea.
Yeah.
And you don't. And then there's a bit where he's got the candles, he turns them into diamonds, different colored diamonds. And they're like, it's so simple and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is an astonishing film. I'm hoping our raving about it actually is inspiring to go see it, because you really should see it. If you're a real cinema fan, this is one to see. But see it as big a screen as possible with the sound way up. But this is a film, it's an experience. It's not an intellectual thing, it's experience. It's
pure cinema.
Yeah. And it's just something that's utterly astonishing. And if you don't get it, I feel pity for you, because this is just the peak of cinema, really.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't get it as a whole, there should be sections of the film where you just go, that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is one of those films like I just think
you have to watch it a couple of times to get it completely, but
yeah, no, but it's a film. It's like, okay, this is art. This is one of the ones that should just be locked away and preserved. Obviously, released as well, but preserved.
Yeah.
Have prints of preserved, because this is the kind of thing you want to keep from our culture. This is one of the great artworks.
I mean, if you were sending films into space to say this is cinema, then this would be one of them.
Yeah,
because it's just pure cinema.
Yeah. And you can watch it and not even listen to the dialogue. So you only watch the dialogue and you can get what's going on just visually. It's I mean, opera. I'm not an opera fan, but this thing's amazing.
No, this is. Obviously, the Venice one, the Barcarolle, is the famous piece of music that was used in a famous advert in the 80s, I think. So you'll be familiar with that anyway if you're not familiar with the rest of Offenbach's Tales of Hoffmann.
But you're in for a treat. I'm not sure what else I can say about it beyond it's amazing, because it's like I
mean, I know it's because I was actually thinking, obviously there's no real plot to go into. It is more of an experience. It's difficult to talk about it, even though
I think we've just been talking about influences, like who's ripped it off. An experience.
So you can't really go through it analytically. It's more just switch your brain off and experience it.
Switch your brain off. It's switch over to just the sensuality of the filmmaking.
The lizard brain, like Robert Hoffmann.
Yeah. It is just this emotional thing that just affects you, if you allow it to affect you.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's as far from Godard as you can possibly get from his sort of intellectualizing everything. This is like the opposite. This is there is meaning to it all, but it is about the sensuality of falling in love and how it can blind you from reality, and the whole kind of fantasy element becomes that experience again and again. And the first one's brighter, the second one's darker, the third one's more autumnal, really, because it's sadder. It's about someone who can't resist their urges to sing and how it's going to kill them. So there's a movement between each section that creates a story in itself. So there is like subtext to everything. Everything means something. Yeah. But it's about the filmmaking as well. It's at the end you get to his depressed look, but how he's missed it out completely, continuously. It's a stunner.
It does have a happy ending if you're Robert Hoffmann.
Yeah, but we're all rooting for Hoffmann.
As soon as he comes on the screen. Yeah, of course, sure.
Yeah, it's like he's a villain, but he's also so much more interesting than the hero.
Like I said, that's one of the reasons I love it, because Hoffmann is a complete buffoon.
Yeah, the hero has it coming, really.
Yeah.
He doesn't learn anything, and you enjoy seeing him getting teased by the world around him. So yeah, I mean the villain. Yeah, this is a film where the villain wins. Yeah. But it's not a down ending though. It's
No.
It's appropriate ending. It's like death defeats Hoffman because Hoffman doesn't really appreciate life properly. He's not mature. He didn't really mature. He was always the romantic rather than someone who learned from mistakes.
Yeah, they should have went with Pamela Brown instead. Who's playing somebody called Nicholas.
Yes, she's meant to be a boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But obviously that's where he should have went. So.
I'm fine for him. Maybe he wasn't very good with women, generally.
She/he cares about him, so
yeah, but he doesn't ever see it.
No.
He's not
He's blinded by robots.
Yeah, aren't we all though?
I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean images are robotic. Basically, images are just mechanical.
Yes.
I mean, we can't actually see anything about been played by robots since we're movie fans, so we're guilty as hell.
Yes.
So is that us then? I don't think we can go much further. I think we're actually going to start boring people by how gushing we are.
Two Archer films that are pretty much as different as they could be, but both well worth your time.
Yeah, both are works of genius. So there you go.
Good place to stop.
Yep. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'll let Ronan do the exit.
Well, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed them, and hopefully you'll seek out these films if you haven't watched them already. Let us know in the comments what you think of them, which one you prefer, and hopefully you'll join me again, or join us again for another episode.
Bye.